Freelance or full-time? Which one are you, freelance employee or full-time employee? Deciding the right place for you is going to be incredibly critical for your career. Hi, I'm Phil Cook, and today I want to talk about, as a creative person, should I operate as a freelancer or should I operate as a full-time employee? And the truth is, when I've been in Hollywood for decades now, and I've seen so many creative people, and I'll tell you this, one of the biggest reasons people's career doesn't work out is because they get in the wrong bucket. They decide to be a freelancer when really they were wired to be a full-time employee, or they go into full-time employment when they really were wired to be a freelancer. So figuring this out, it sounds kind of weird, but figuring it out is going to be incredibly important for your career. Many years ago, I had a friend who was a television producer, and he spent his whole career working as a full-time network employee. He was an employee at a major network. Well, years went by, and he decided he wanted to be a freelancer. And so he left, and guess what? He lasted about 6 months. He was so used, all these years, he was so used to having a giant staff, having a big facility, having resources at his disposal, that once he went out on his own, he just couldn't survive. It drove him nuts. And he lasted about 6 months before he went back to another full-time gig at another major studio. Now, on the other hand, I'm over here in the freelance world. I've always been there. I spent the first part of my career working as an employee. Then I went into the freelance world and realized, whoa, what a great fit for me. That's what I want. I'd rather operate like a guerrilla. I don't have that staff. I don't have a huge resource. I don't have hundreds of people working with me and a giant budget. However, I have freedom. I have a certain freedom that a full-time employee may not have. So it was a great fit for me. So I just want to talk a little bit today about which one is right for you. And I don't have a magic formula. There's no 5-step process. But I will tell you this, figuring it out may be one of the most important things you possibly do in your career. Certainly there's issues like calling and significance and purpose and all these things, and we talk about this, but on other episodes, by the way, we talk about these things. However, on this episode, I just want you to stop and think. And this will be short, but I just want you to stop and think which is the right for me. I mean, let's look at it. Full-time employees can get insurance benefits, they get a regular salary, there's a certain they can relax to a certain degree knowing they have a regular job. On the other hand, freelancers have a lot more freedom, but they wake up unemployed every morning. It's funny, you can always tell the freelancers on a movie set in Hollywood, when we're shooting a film or our company's producing a program or a film, you know the freelancers, because as soon as me or another director yells cut, the freelancers all pick up their phone and start talking. And they're lining up their next gig. They're calling their next producer. They're calling their next project. They're lining up their next gig. Freelancers are always hustling. To be a successful freelancer is not just about freedom and glamour. To be a successful freelancer means you've got to take charge of your career. You are a salesperson. You are the captain of the ship. And if you don't work, you don't work. If you don't get those relationships, if you don't network, if you don't develop projects and clients, you're not going to work. So it's a huge amount of responsibility in exchange for the freedom of being a freelancer. On the other hand, the bad side of being a full-time employee is I've learned that they can often coast. I go into a recording studio. Here's a great example. I was doing a documentary for PBS a few years ago, and we were recording the narration and the soundtrack, and had some unusual effects that I wanted to do. So I go into one studio, and the sound guy is a full-time employee. And I said, well, here's what I want to do. And he said, well, we don't really do that here. I mean, he pretty much owned his recording room, his studio there, because he was the full-time guy. He was there all the time. He didn't own the company, but he was the full-time recording engineer. And he had the room set up the way he wanted it because he was there all the time. And he said, well, that would take too much trouble for me to rechange the room and shift everything, and we don't really do that. So I'll go down the street to another studio, same type of facility, and the audio engineer there was a freelancer. And I said, look, I want to do some unusual things, and here's what I've got in mind. And he said, tell you what, Mr. Cook, you go have a cup of coffee in the lounge. It'll take about 30 to 40 minutes for me to fix this up, but I'll have it ready for you in about 30, 45 minutes. The difference was he had a sense of ownership about his room, and he wasn't willing to shift. It was too much trouble for him because he was a full-time employee. He had other things lined up, and he knew other things would come along. He didn't have to worry. Freelancer, on the other hand, has to hustle. He's got to make the client happy. Let me tell you something. I was much more happy with the freelancer in that case. Now, that doesn't mean all full-time employees are bad or all freelancers are good, but I found that flexibility here is amazing because they have to respond to whatever the client wants. So, and on the other hand, the stability of a freelance employee brings great things to the table. They have things that a freelancer does. Trying to book time at a facility with full-time employees is much easier sometimes than freelancers because they're always trying to book different projects at different times. So the bottom line is neither one is good or bad. It's not a better or worse thing. It's how am I wired? What's the environment I will fit into more comfortably? Do I need resources? Do I need stability? Do I need a staff? Do I need other people around me every day? Do I want that regular 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever your work schedule is? Do I want that regular work schedule? Or am I more comfortable really flying by the seat of my pants? Am I more comfortable driving my own train, being in command of my own destiny? Having to do the sales, having to do the work, but in exchange, having the freedom to work when I want and when I don't want. So both, again, understand neither is good, neither is bad, but you need to figure it out, value it, understand the difference. The future self, your future self, will thank you for it. Thanks for joining us today because I want to really help you as a creative professional move from where you are to where you need to be. And we do that on my blog at philcook.com. I'd encourage you to go check it out because we're always talking about these kind of issues there. Very important stuff with your career. And remember, if you're not growing, you're dying. Constantly be learning, constantly be challenging yourself. And today's topic of freelancing or a full-time employee this was a short podcast. But it's incredibly important. Sometimes these short nuggets are exactly what you need to hear. So thanks a lot for joining us. Come check out more at philcook.com. I'd love to hear your comments there. Talk to us about what you think are important and share with us a little bit some of the topics you'd like to hear about. What are the things that will help your career move to the next level? Because that's what we're focused on, and that's how we want to help you. So freelance, full-time employee, you know what? Decide what it is because your future self will thank you for it.